Welcome to Be the Light 365. I'm Pastor Jake. Today we're going to talk about brotherly love and things that in the church and we're not seeing as much as we used to. Brothers used to help out each other and not take advantage of people. And what we're finding out that these brothers are not brothers as you think they are. So today we're going to read out of John 13, 34 through 35. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, and if you love one another. And like I said, we have the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not have any other God before me. Thou shalt not make any images, graven images, or have any idols. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. Thou shalt keep the Sabbath. Thou shalt not love your mother and father. Honor your mother and father. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And thou shalt not want anything at your neighbor's. In other words, not covenant. That means want. So these are things that we have already, the 10 commandments. And the commandments, James says, if you break one, you break them all. Well, Jesus come back and said, okay, I'm going to give you a new commandment. Love your brethren. Love them as as yourself. In other words, this is how everybody will know that you are my disciples, my Christian. You are a Christian is by love. Now, if you see a person that's all he does is spit out hate, that's not very Christianly, and it's not, and he's not obeying the commandment. Straight up, straightforward. There is no in between. God said there is no in between with Him. You're either good or you're evil. Either you're following God or you're following the devil. If you're following the devil, then you're no part of God. Matter of fact, He says it like this in 1 John 2, verses 9 through 11. He that saith he is in light and hateth his brother is in darkness until now. He that loveth his brother abideth in the light, and there is no occasion for him to stumble. But he that hateth his brother is in darkness, and walk in darkness, and knoweth not whither he goes, because his darkness has blinded his eyes. And that's the thing here, is that they're saying, people will say, well, I'm Christian. Well, that has been watered down so many times, because no one ever, Christians, you're going to act like Christ. It means Christ-like. If you're not acting Christ-like, then you're acting devil-like. And like I've said before in other videos and other sermons, you're supposed to be Christ and be Christ. If you're God's, then be God's, because there is no anything. He said you either love Him or hate Him. You cannot serve two masters. You can either serve the devil or you can serve God. There is no in between. There is none of this, well, I'm going to be warm, I'm going to stay neutral. There is no neutral with God. Either for Him or against Him. And another thing, I'm going to go ahead and read 1 John 2, verses 15 through 17. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world is lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, lust of the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and lust therein. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. In other words, you're not supposed to love things. I know Easter's coming up pretty soon, and I've already heard a lot of certain things, come across always. And one of them that kind of got me was someone had said something about, well, our church is not going to have because families are going to do stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, for one day of the year, you cannot worry about your family, because God says over that anybody that loves his father or mother more than him is not fit for his disciple, nor his sister or his brother or his children are fit to be his disciples, because you're supposed to love God. And you're supposed to put God first. If you're not putting God first, then I'm going to say right now, you need to check your heart. because there is something wrong. Because God is supposed to be first. Then, we go down the line to the family and all that. But when you're wanting to change stuff because to suit people before God, then there's your mistake. We have to all stand in front of God, and being a pastor and being anything else, we have to stand, and we're more acceptable to anything that's going to happen, because it said we're held more accountable. Deacons, all this, we're all held accountable in front of God, and we all got to stand in front of God. We all got to do everything we have done on this earth. We're going to pay reckon for. Either, as God says, there's no condemnation in His people, but we have rewards, and we have things in heaven that we have to answer for. So that's one of the things I'm trying to get across on this whole thing, is that loving your brother doesn't mean that you walk up to him and say, well, you need to give me something. Well, you're not supposed to want. Okay? If you're having hard times, then you ask. There's way of asking stuff. You don't go up to somebody and tell somebody that you're going to do something. You don't get mad at them because they don't give you something, or they got more than you, because you're not supposed to covet it anyways. You're not supposed to want anything anybody else has. You're just supposed to be happy with what you got. Paul says that he was content through poverty, through much of all. He has been through more stripes than any other man, and he said he was content. And that's what we should be, content. We should be happy for what we got, happy that we even got a breath this day and a heartbeat this day. No matter how bad it is, it always can get worse, because there is a hell. And hell is not something you're going to love. It's not no party. It's not no great picnic down there, because it's hot and you will not enjoy it. Matter of fact, is your absence from God. You're going to be away from God and not in His presence at all to even talk to Him. You can't even scream out. You can scream out all day and not have no problem, and you're still in the same boat. So that's why I always say, we need to check our hearts, know where we're coming from. I'm going to go ahead and go with another 1 John 4, 20-21. If a man said, I love God, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother, whom he can see, how can he love God whom he cannot see? As this commandment have we from him, that he who loveth God loveth his brother also. There's a lot of rifts and a lot of bad going on in churches. And it's because certain families don't want this, and they want this, and they want their way. If they don't get their way, they get mad. Well, I'm sorry, get mad. It's your fault. It's your problem. It's something that you need to go with, because you have a heart problem. And eventually God's going to check you on it. I'm not coming out with on this. I'm just trying to make people understand is that we're going to be standing in front of God, and the way this world's going, probably soon. And God's going to be looking at us, and He's going to be asking us, why did we do this? Why did you do it this way? Why did you say something against your brother? You're supposed to love your brother. How can you love? You say you love me, but you hated him. It's because we have problems and issues. As the parable says, a dog will return to its own vomit, and a sow will water its own mud. Well, he says that because we're creatures of habit. We get mad. Well, God says, well, I have a word for that. He says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. In other words, let it go. I mean, we have this whole society as you owe me something, and if you don't, then you're wrong. Well, that's the devil talking. The devil is out there trying to destroy, kill, steal, and destroy. If anything's kill, steal, and destroy, that's the devil. I'm afraid to say. If you say that you hate somebody in your church, well, then you're going to pay for it. Straight up, God says you are. Because how can you say you love me and hate Him? So then I'm going to go with this one, because everybody actually always asks about this. Well, who's your brother and sisters, mother and sisters? And all he's talking about your brother. Well, that's everybody. You're supposed to love everybody. No, he said, love your enemies, but don't get around them. He said, love your neighbor. Well, he said, neighbor is the Good Samaritan, someone who will do good to you when nobody else will. And this here, he says, It's in Matthew 12, verses 48 to 50. But he answered and said unto him that told him, Who is my mother? And who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hands towards his disciples and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren, for whoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same as my brothers, mothers, sisters, and mothers. And that's him saying that, we need to do what God says. Our brothers and mothers and sisters are the ones who do the will of God. In other words, who love each other, who have compassion on each other, who will help somebody in their need. He said, if a person comes to you naked and all, don't send them away and say, okay, well, go, I'll pray for you. I hope you find some clothes. I hope you find something to eat. No, he says you're supposed to give it to them. He said, but for those who want to come up to you and say, well, I need this, I need that, no, you don't need nothing. You're wanting something. Quit wanting and be happy with what you have. Even sometimes the worst place you can be, it still can be the happiest places. If you got God. God is your happy place. That's where you should be. That's what you should want. You should be happy on Easter to spend a day with all your brothers and sisters and worship about God. You should be happy that, God is there for you and he gave us his son for you. So we thank you and I hope you have a blessed day, and subscribe and like. Thank you.